Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, and I'm here every week breaking down all the things happening in pop culture. And today, I'm so excited. We have such a special guest joining the conversation. He's a real expert on all things Real Housewives, sharing his hilarious recaps on all of our favorite Bravo shows on Vulture. Not to mention, he's a New York Times bestselling author. His book, The Housewives, the real story behind the Real Housewives, is available now. Please welcome to The Gist, Brian Moylan.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Of course, this is such an honor because, like I said, you truly are the expert. And, we are very entertained by our Bravo shows and our housewives. They give us so much life. But then you keep the entertainment going with these recaps. But for the listeners, tell us a little bit about how you started your journey with Bravo and how you came to the Real Housewives.
So I started writing about television like fairly early in my career when I graduated from college. I was going to grad school for creative writing, and there was a summer where I needed a job, and so I took. This is how long it was. The year 2000, and it was so long ago. I went to school in Washington D.C. and I took the Washington City paper, and I just applied for like every job in the back of the Washington City paper, and the only places I heard back from were the Washington Blade, which was the gay newspaper in DC. It's still there, the world's longest continuously running gay newspaper. And so it was them and the Crew Club, which is like the local bathhouse. And so those were like my two job interviews. And so I went and interviewed at the Blade, and I was getting ready for my interview to go interview at the Crew Club, and the Blade called and were like, "Oh, you got the job." And so I never went to my bathhouse interview, but I mean, that's really my sliding doors moment, if we're being honest. Like, it could have gone one way or the other.
Seriously.
And so back then, there weren't a lot of gay people on television still. It was kind of like Will and Grace, Queer as Folk kind of era, but like not like today where there's like gay people all over the place. And so I started a column in our newspaper about like gay stuff on television, and at the time, there were a lot of local gay publications, so we started syndicating that, and so I got better interviews and like more access and stuff like that. So that's how I kind of started writing about television, and then I moved to New York eventually, and started working at Gawker, RAP, and I was recapping like smart people shows like Mad Men and some other things. I did Project Runway and like Top Chef and things like that. Yeah. And my colleague Richard Lawson was doing The Housewives, and then he left, and I kind of started doing The Housewives there. And I was always a fan, and then I just became like kind of professional. And so I had like a few jobs after that, and eventually moved. I did recaps on my own for a while, like on Medium, and then Vulture lost their recapper, so I started there. And it will be 10 years in January since I started recapping at Vulture. So yeah. And so for a while, I was like doing a lot of other writing, more like general TV writing. I was writing a lot about like sex stuff and gay stuff and all sorts of things. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be the Housewives guy. I don't want to be the Housewives guy. But then eventually I was just like, fuck it, I'm the Housewives guy. So here we are. So yeah, now that's like almost all of what I write about. So thanks, ? I guess. I don't know. But yeah. So
no, thank you for doing it.
You're welcome.
It's, like I said, it's so entertaining. And so I know you mentioned it in your book, but you started like from the very beginning. You saw these women of the OC, and actually it was Shane Kehoe who gave you this life, and you were like, okay, I've got to tune in. Is that sort of the beginning for you?
Absolutely. Because so I was living in DC, and I lived in this apartment. It was like a basement of a townhouse. My friends all called it the dungeon. It was like the worst apartment ever, but it was $350 a month, if you could believe such a thing. And so I was living there, and we had free cable. And by free, I mean pirated. And it had Bravo. And so like that was when it was like linear television was your only option. And so Bravo would just be on as I'd be doing shit around the apartment, whatever. And that was more like Project Runway, Top Chef, Flipping Out era Bravo,
Mm-hmm.
where when it was like
Yeah.
slightly more highbrow. And so I just like it was on one day, and there was Shane Keogh in his like swim trunks, like in a floaty in the pool, and I was like, what the fuck is this show? And so I came for the Shane Keogh, and I stayed for the rest of it. And yeah, it's so weird that like I've been writing about the Housewives so long that having a period in my life where it was not a professional obligation is hard to remember, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like back when you actually enjoyed just watching it without having to think about like taking notes about it.
Yeah, and I still really enjoy the shows I don't write about, like Atlanta. I don't write about Potomac. I don't write about Below Decks. I don't write about things like that, where I just get to watch like a
Mm-hmm.
fan and just
Yeah.
enjoy myself. And yeah, rather than paying attention. And this season of Vanderpump Rules was so incredible and
Yeah.
insane that I was like, oh, I have to watch it twice anyway, like, because there's so much to get. And so I started watching it like with my husband at night, like with everybody, maybe a little stoned, and
Mm-hmm.
the way Bravo is meant to be appreciated. And then the next morning I would go and watch like a recapper and like take notes and stuff. And so it was so fun to get, because it was such a good season, to be able to
Oh,
enjoy it like the way it's meant to be enjoyed, as well as it being a part of the workday. If that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess we'll get right into that because I have more that I want to cover on your book and of course the Housewives. But since you brought up Scandival, I mean, I think the first thing is I'm guessing when you watched it back, you watched the supersized Peacock versions uncensored.
No, because so only for the last one I did, because I have to write the recaps, and so I need to have watched it and written it by the time everybody else has watched it. And the Peacock one
Got
didn't
it.
come out till the day after. But my husband was gone for the third part of the reunion, and so we watched it a few days later. And we have I live in the UK, I live in London,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a subscription service here called HeyYou,
Mm-hmm.
HAYU.com. And it's like all trashy American reality shows. So it's like all the Housewives, Kardashians, Dr. Pimple Popper, Botched, like everything you can imagine. I joke that when I die, I want my consciousness to be uploaded to HeyYou. Like that's like where I just want to live forever. And
Yeah.
so we watched it on HeyYou, and so it comes on the day after there. And so they just showed the Peacock extended ones. And so we watched it after I had recapped the regular Bravo one. And I was shocked at how much better it was. And I was like, damn, I wish I was watching these all along. Like there was so much more. There was so much more context. Hearing people say the F words and the C words
Mm-hmm.
and whatever else has such a deeper impact than you think it does, because you hear it bleeped and you're like, oh, I know what you're saying, but to actually
Yeah.
hear them say it is like crazy.
Yeah. I mentioned it on this podcast too. Like it was, I feel like now there's no other way. And I know they just announced they're going to do the part 3 Jersey reunion uncensored on Peacock and do the same thing. But it's like, this is just where Peacock needs to go, is like we need it uncensored. And I remember having that same sort of feeling when I watched Drag Race for the first time on like Paramount
Yeah.
Plus or something. And when Rue says like, don't fuck it up. And I remember feeling like, whoa, that has a different impact without the bleep. It's like a completely different experience.
I know, it's so weird that it's like that. But yeah, and I have heard, kind of off the record from people at Peacock that like the Housewives fandom is a really big part of their subscriber base. And that's why I think they're really trying to super serve us. And I know that there was an email that went out like around the time of BravoCon last year to all of NBC Universal saying like, BravoCon is such a great idea. This is the future of our business. This is where we're going to make money. You all people need to be doing it more like Bravo. And so I'm glad that we're finally being appreciated for the
Mm-hmm.
force, both creatively, economically, whatever else, to these corporations. So
Yeah.
thanks, guys, for finally listening.
Yeah. giving us what we want. I mean, it's probably my most watched like platform that I have because of the content that it gives. It's like so focused on our Bravo shows. And so I spend most of my time on Peacock.
I mean, I haven't watched anything bad on Peacock. Like Saved by the Bell reboot was fantastic. Poker Face,
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. That Mrs. Davis show is fucking weird as shit, but I enjoy it. Like Peacock is where it's at, y'all. I don't need to tell Bravo fans. So
I'm jealous though that you have Hey You because I'm waiting. I'm like, why isn't Peacock giving us this? Is I need Real Housewives of Melbourne. That's like we got it on Bravo for a few years, and then it's like I can't get to these late seasons. And oh, I loved that city.
oh my god, it was so good. It was so good. And I hear the reboot I didn't love. There was no Gina, which
Mm-hmm.
Gamble was on it, so I enjoyed that, but I didn't really finish it because it was a little so. Supposedly they're trying to reboot Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Question mark. We'll see.
Yeah, I am blocked by Gina on Twitter. We got into a bit of a Twitter feud back in the day, but now I like wish I had access because I'd be like, how can you like pirate me these episodes? I need them in my life. Like that was such a good city, and so I'm hoping that like someday Peacock realizes it and they load us up with Melbourne because I would love that.
Yeah, they should. I mean, I don't know why they don't put every Real Housewives on there ever. I joke that there should be a Real Housewives Christmas movie, but all the parts are played by Real Housewives who have aspirations to be actresses. Like,
Love it.
girl, we would watch the shit out of that. I mean, we're such suckers. We'll watch anything you put in front of us. I tell you. Oh,
It's true.
so I got the first 3 episodes of the Sonia and Luann show, the Welcome to Crappy Lake
Oh, tell
show.
me. Yes. Yes.
It is so good and it is so funny.
I can't
Like
wait.
the bar was very low, and so granted it cleared my low expectations, but it was my husband and I both watched it and we were both like, this is so good and like funny, and there's like fart jokes, and like Sonia fucks some random redneck that they meet at a bar, like, and then they take them mudding the next
Yes.
day. It's just like nuts.
Yes. This is what I wanted. Yeah, the trailer looked amazing and had low expectations, and then I was like, "Oh, that is going to be amazing." And after watching the premiere of OC last week, I said on this podcast, I was like, Shannon Bedore gives such like good camera work, and she like gives us such like comedy that I was like, I feel like she needs to be thrown on this like Crappy Lake series with a Sonia. Like a Sonia and a Shannon, I feel like could be pure comedy. So I can't wait for it. I love that you saw the first 3 and that's your reaction, because I have a feeling it's going to be something we're going to all feast our eyes on.
And they're 30 minutes each, which is like, it's like just enough. It's like the stupid, wonderful summer show that you want. So I'm very excited for
I love
all of
that.
you to see it with me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, speaking of the OC, what are your thoughts about this new season as we're kind of starting to get into it? The return of Tamra, the new Jennifer housewife. Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't think they have anything based on, I mean,
Tell
like
me more.
the trailer is supposed to be the best parts of the season, right? And it's like even the worst seasons, you watch the trailer and you're like, okay, it's going to be a good season. And then I watched the trailer and I was like, they got nothing. And based on watching the first episode, I don't think they have nothing either. And so I am ideologically opposed to bringbacks. I mean, there are a few people I will make exceptions for, and they're usually the people who shouldn't have been fired in the first place. Namely, Sharia Whitfield is always welcome on any Real Housewives of Atlanta I'm watching. And Tamra, I don't think they probably should have gotten rid of Tamra. But yeah, I don't think that the future of Housewives is in the past because, you know, we never... Like, we didn't know we needed a Dorinda Medley until we had her. Right. You know, we didn't even know a Shannon Bedore existed until they found her and brought it to us. And so I don't know what is going on with Real Houses of Orange County, but because they've had some great all-time housewives. Shannon Bedore, Kelly Dodd,
Mhm.
all-time great. Tamra, Vicky, all these people, and they're all on the same show, but they can't make a good show together. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's their fault, if it's the producer's fault, if they just need to like scrap Orange County altogether, if they just need to fire all them and like rehire people. I don't know what the deal is, but
Yeah.
I mean, if I weren't getting paid to watch it, I would have given up on it years ago. Sorry, Orange County.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if this like New York, hard reboot of New York is a kind of test balloon, because we're starting to see OC, Atlanta, New Jersey,
Mhm.
like really flagging a lot,
Mhm.
and I'm curious, how that's gonna rectify itself.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like Tamra, I agree. Like I at first I was like I feel I Dorinda is I think the perfect example where it's like you need a Dorinda, but then you also like if there's a reason that we got rid of Dorinda, then there's probably a reason why she's run her course, and maybe we don't
Yes.
need to like reboot her, and maybe we don't need to bring her back when everything else is feeling stale. And I think with OC, the thing that I like so far, Tamara's been okay. I feel like maybe I keep hoping that like Bravo has learned their lesson is that in the past, sometimes on these really boring seasons, they pack the trailer full of all the most explosive moments and then there's nothing else. And so I'm hoping that maybe there's stuff that is coming that we're going to get, like the mid-season trailer. We're going to be like chomping at the bit for the rest of the season. But
I think that's a false hope.
I mean,
Because like, if there's a great moment, like, why would they save it? And that
yeah,
doesn't like
yeah.
quite. Yeah.
It's I was hoping that wouldn't be the case, but I also, I mean, my personal opinion is I don't understand. We're like rotating through Housewives on some of these other franchises, like it's Survivor, and somehow Gina and
Yeah.
Emily are still full-time cast members on OC.
I like Gina and Emily. I'm
I,
sorry. I do. I do. I love Emily. Her politics are supposedly QAnon
yeah.
adjacent, which I don't love and I don't really want to hear about. But I think Emily's a great housewife. It's like she's funny, she doesn't give a shit, she looks good, she'll throw down when she needs to. Like, I'm into Emily. Gina is a bit of a mess. She's not as aspirational, but I like that you could run into Gina at TJ Maxx, and she's definitely a fellow Maxinista. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And yeah, and so I think it's a different feel, and I like a duo. Like, I
Mm.
love a Giselle and Robin, or a Sonia and Ramona,
Yeah.
or Sonia and Lou on their
Yeah.
on their show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like Gina and Emily. I mean,
I
yeah.
mean, I get
I
it.
don't know why we didn't get more of that Nicole. Remember Nicole from last season, who was supposed to be like full. Excuse me. The
Oh,
rumor was that she was going to be like a full-time housewife. And then whatever happened with Heather Dubrow in the lawsuit, and Heather Dubrow like put the kibosh on it,
yeah.
and she kind of left the show. But I think Nicole would have been a great addition. She's clearly a crazy person.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah,
mean, bring
I
it.
think Heather needs to she's probably another one that we didn't need to reboot and bring back, because I
No.
think that like she's got her claws in Bravo in a way that we don't need in a housewife, because, to the Nicole point that you just made. And then also, um, as we were hearing, like the filming and production was happening on OC, there was supposedly some explosive cheating rumors about Heather and Terry, and none of that is in the preview. And I'm like, something tells me that Heather and Terry, like, put the end to that storyline, and we're like, that's not going to fly. And now I'm like, well, maybe that's why we don't have a season, because that's the story that we actually like could have sunk our teeth
Right.
into.
What everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the story's good enough, there's nothing that Heather or Terry could really do to keep them from doing it. And I think that we've seen that over and over again, that, with Bravo, Bravo, fucking Bravo, that
Mhm.
they're, willing to go that far. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think Heather and Terry really want to be on television a lot,
Yeah.
and so they'll be pissed off, but they're not really gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
their amount of wealth and the way that they make money, I am so boggled by, because obviously, like, Terry has like a very successful business. They've been on TV shows. Heather's got, her various things that she does, but they spend money so much that I feel like I'm constantly thinking about their children and being like, is there going to be nothing left for these kids someday? Like, I
right.
feel like they're
Is there
spending.
retirement savings
Yeah, I
anywhere?
feel like they're just spending everything they make. And I don't know, their whole thing is very wild to me.
The internet says that Terry's family has money.
Mm, okay. That I have not.
I don't know whether or not I believe that because you've never read anything that's a lie on the internet. But we'll see. But yeah, I'm with you. And then they were on, but they just bought a house from one of the brokers on Selling Sunset.
Right.
So, so they bought like a giant Beverly Hills, quote unquote Beverly Hills, but it's really Century City apartment. And the rumor was that she's been trying to get on Beverly Hills. And she was initially introduced to the producers by Lisa Vanderpump, who was trying to get her on Beverly Hills. And then instead, they ended up putting her on Orange County because the same production company makes Beverly Hills
Yeah.
and Orange County. So
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I need her on Beverly Hills. I don't know if I need her at all, to be honest.
no, I don't need her anywhere,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
She gave us some good years.
she's good enough, but like, that's the thing now is like we have Ultimate Girls Trip. Like if we want to see Heather, like fly Heather to Thailand for a week with a bunch of other people and like let's see her. Like we don't need to bring her back. Like I don't think she's bringing anything like new or different or better to the show than what we were already getting.
Yeah.
But yeah, also like Shannon's boyfriend waited till right after cameras finished filming to dump her. Like, so, we're not even going to get that. Like, John, come on. At least dump her at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, give us something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ultimate Girls Trip, the ladies, we now have seen Ramona and Sonia and Dorinda. We've seen Kelly and Kristen. We see them making their trek to St. Bart's. What are your thoughts about this legacy Ultimate Girls Trip that we're getting, and thoughts on the rumors that are circulating online that maybe Jill and Bethany are going to be like surprise visits on the series?
I don't think Bethany is gonna come back because I don't think they want to cut a Bethany sized check to get her back. Yeah. And I know, and I do believe part of like firing Tamara and bringing her back, and same with Vicky, is they've been trying to get the salaries down, and so it's like, if you rehire Tamara, she's not going to take a giant pay cut. So you had to like fire her and then you rehire her and you're like, oh, we're going to give you half as much. And yeah, so I don't think Bethany's coming back. Jill, I think would be genius. So, but also she's supposedly the reason why we didn't get Legacy. We're just getting this trip.
Right.
So maybe she's not either. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that we necessarily need them. I mean, this is a great cast. I would have loved if they could have gotten everyone ever on New York, to go on a trip together. I mean, there's only like 15 of them, which is a lot of people, but it's not too much. But I think it's going to be great. I'm a little sad we're not getting like a full season of Legacy. Like I wanted another season of Real Housewives of New York. We're essentially getting Ultimate Girls Trip, Real Housewives of New York, which is fine, but that's not what I want. Like these women gave us 12 years of the best reality television that the world has ever seen. And to now just kind of put them in the dustbin, as the English would say, seems a little foolhardy. Like I'm all for recasting and making it more diverse and making it cooler and more Brooklyn-y and whatever. I'm really excited about the reboot, but that doesn't mean we need to get rid of this, especially when that's what we were promised. And so bravo.
Yeah.
You need to live up to your promises.
Yeah. I mean, I know that like they say Jill killed that with the negotiations and stuff, but I also wonder if this is like as you mentioned, like the gateway, if they're going to do this as a special, see what the appetite is, and then maybe it leads to a more full-time kind of legacy show. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is some missing characters. Like I don't know where Kristen really fits in. She wasn't like a staple to me for New York, and
Yeah,
I would love to have seen like a Carol or something back. Somebody that just had a little bit more meat in the series, a Heather, somebody that could really come and stir stuff up.
yeah.
I feel like, Kristen was always kind of just like she went where the wind did. She didn't bring like a ton, and I don't know. So we'll see. I think like Alex being back in the fold with them, but I feel like they didn't go with Alex because she had just filmed for Ultimate Girls Trip 4.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like it does feel a little like there's some missing. If you're gonna do legacy and it doesn't have to be in New York, like seems like you should have invested in really bringing back some of the like true staples that like led that series to where it like is or where it was today.
Yeah, or I would have loved. There was a rumor that it was just going to be the original cast. So
Yeah,
Alex, Ramona, Luann, Bethany, Jill. That also would have been a great kind of
amazing.
thing. Did you watch any of the Real World reunions?
Like the new ones on Paramount
Yes.
or like the reboots. Yes, I watched. I just watched New Orleans because I loved Real World New Orleans.
That was one of the best reality shows I've ever seen in my life because it was really like a reality show about middle age and like revisiting your youth. And in this, it's like like rewatching it with the people you were
Mhm.
there with, and like talking about what had happened in the intervening years and how fame affected all these people and how they come out the other end of it. And I mean, it was like the Big Chill, the reality show, and I was obsessed
Yeah,
with it. And so I think that we would have gotten some really good stuff from bringing all those women back together again, especially because they're not nearly as conflict averse as some of the people on Real World Homecoming: New Orleans.
yeah, yeah. And on that, I love too when they did like the flashbacks of like who said this thing in their confessional, and then like they all had to kind of talk about it. I feel like
Yeah.
that would be great for like a housewife kind of cast of like, remember when you said this thing about that person, and then it just like lights the fire for right before dinner.
Yeah, it's like, oh, let's revisit when Bethany called Luann a snake at a fashion show in season 3. And yeah,
Yes,
let's go from
and
there and see how everybody feels. Let's make Ramona and Bethany watch their trip across the Brooklyn
yes,
Bridge. And
yes.
that,
I was just
10
thinking that.
years later and talk about it. That's what I want.
Yeah. That would be epic. I mean, Ramona would have no clue that that scene ever was shot. She would have like not
No.
remember any of it. She'd be like, "No,
Oh
that
my
wasn't me. That
God.
wasn't me."
I am obsessed with like the idea of what happens to the women, like, or anybody really, like once the fame goes away. And I had dinner with a friend of ours. She's a television writer. She writes like very serious shows, and I
Mhm.
was like, and her daughter is a huge Vanderpump fan, so we were talking about Vanderpump, and I was like, you should write a series where Raquel has to quit the show for her mental health and like moves back to Tucson and works in a bank and is like getting over her fame addiction. And she was like, that's a brilliant idea. And I was like, yes, I want to watch that show. And I want to watch that reality show. Like, I want to see what that's like.
Yeah.
How, I mean, fame is such a specific drug and it fucks up all their heads. And I just want to see like how they all deal with it when the cameras go away. Like, can we get a little Lisa Rinna, web series about Lisa Rinna watching this season and trying to deal with not being on it? Like, fascinating.
Yeah. Although I don't know that she would ever admit that she would that would be so inauthentic for her because she would play it off as like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm
No,
not
she would
there."
never be like, I hate it. I miss the attention. I miss the fame. Now I'm just going to fashion shows and weird outfits because I'm not on a reality show anymore.
Um who would be, speaking of all these like, we're talking about like so many epic people. Who's kind of your dream ultimate girls trip? Have you thought about like who you would put together in a room?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like the idea of like a dynamic duos trip,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
Robin and Giselle, Brandy and Stephanie from Dallas,
Mm.
like people like that who are, uh, yeah, like twosomes, gruesome twosomes, as it were. I
Yeah.
also like the idea of an ultimate girls trip, but it's non housewives. So like
Hmm.
maybe a couple of the Summer House girls, a couple of the Southern Charm girls, like a little something like that. I think would be really cool. Who would be my ultimate? I mean, really, my ultimate girls trip would just be like the original cast of New York.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
but I really didn't like the last girls trip because it was too close to filming and they were rehashing
Yeah.
these things from the series, and that's not what I want. I want a kind of different experience from an ultimate girls trip. I really like when they talk about being housewives and how that affected them and that they let them break the fourth wall a bit more. So I
Yeah.
would be really interested in that. Oh, or what about like a friends of ultimate girls trip, friends of, oh, or what about
Mm.
an ultimate girls trip, the gays? And it's like Dwight and Miss J and Greg Bennett from Real Housewives of New Jersey, and just like everybody's
Love.
gays get to go. Mikey Minden from Erica Jane's Gay, like
Yes.
that'd be a great
Yeah.
show. I'd
Well,
watch the hell out of that. I'd also love
yeah.
a Ultimate Girls Trip Survivor where they have to vote somebody out each. See who's
Yes.
standing at the
Well,
end.
yeah. Like a traders, but all housewives,
Oh,
or all. I guess that is traders.
I cannot wait. Like now the traders is going to be all reality stars. There are a bunch of people I really want on it. Number one is Lala Kent, who fucking figured that Scandival shit out from the beginning. I mean, I don't love her, but she'd be great on traders. Also great on traders,
Yes.
but not one of my favorite housewives, Candace Dillard. Excellent on
Yep.
traders. Sign her up.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
just gonna say Candace, I think would be like so good on that show.
Lindsay Hubbard, done. Signed, sealed, delivered. I want Kate Chastain back.
Yeah.
Even though she hated it
I
last
need
time. Yeah.
I need Kate Chastain back in some like fashion. I had heard that she and Brandy were potentially going to do some like duo show, and maybe it was like even this like crappy lake kind of style series. And then she got pregnant, and then Brandy had all the drama at Ultimate
Yeah.
Girls Trip, and so like that kind of put the end to that. But Kate Chastain is one. It's like Bravo royalty. Like I don't know why she's not just constantly on TV.
Oh my God. She's amazing and I love her. And I hope that we can somehow do justice by her. Yeah. And that's what's so weird is I feel like once we derail these people's lives with a reality television career, like we need to support them forever. Like they're on the Bravo dole for the rest of their lives. Cause like it's one thing okay, if Ramona gets kicked off the show or the show gets canceled, she's approaching 70. She's going to be fine. What is Katie
Yeah.
Maloney Schwartz Maloney going to do? Like, she has not had a job since she worked at Sir.
Yeah.
Like, and she has, I'm sure none of those kids have managed their money responsibly. So, like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's how I feel a little about like Carl and Lindsay. They were talking about like how much they're paying for their apartment on this season of Summer House. And it was like neither one. And then, Paige calls them out at the reunion. Like neither one of them have jobs. So how are they making money? And like the last I've heard, I haven't heard anything about production for the new season. I had Sam Fair on the podcast and she kind of hinted that like cameras were going to be picked back up. And so I assume that they will now that we're in the summer, but it wasn't announced
Yeah.
in part of like Bravo's upfronts for the 2023-24 season. So I don't know what's happening with Summer House.
I mean, I believe that I believe that there's another season, but I don't like the new schedule with Winter House because we have to wait so long
Yeah.
to get both of them that it doesn't feel like vital anymore, especially because if there's major things happening, we've already seen it play out on social media and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, but usually they start filming the week before July 4th. So we have like a few more weeks. Oh my God, they can't get rid of Summer House. Last season was lousy, but I mean, I
Yeah.
love it too much. I was on Mandy Slutzker's podcast.
Mhm.
She's fantastic. And she has a theory that Summer House and Vanderpump Rules can't be good at the same time, like that they're like two sides of a coin. And because we have had a killer season of Vanderpump, we had to have a shitty season of Summer House. And so, yeah, we'll see what the cards hold for next season. I feel like it might be another good Vanderpump shitty Summer House season, but I'm hoping for the opposite because I love Summer House.
Yeah, I don't know where they go with Vanderpump too. I feel like some of these, I mean, it seems as though maybe Lindsay and Danielle are on a path forward. So I think that we're figuring that out. But it's like when you start having the cast that like refuse to film with each other, it really, I
Yes.
think, puts it in a weird place. I mean, I think that's why New Jersey's kind of at a halt right now. They're trying to figure out Melissa or Teresa or both gone. They like
Yeah.
really don't know which way to go because you can't have a cast that refuses to be in the same room.
Yeah. And it was already weird enough on Vanderpump where you have Tom and Katie like hanging out in Mexico. Like once you divorce this person, you never want to see them again. That's kind of the point. And yeah. And
Yeah.
so and that's the thing is we all acknowledge that these things are produced, that there is a certain amount of structuring that happens behind the scenes. I think less so on Bravo shows than a lot of other shows, but still it happens. But yeah, if Tom and Ariana have to be at the same party, like that's just no one's going to believe that and it's going to be dumb.
Yeah.
So, but you also can't have everybody like just filming with their sides and only filming with people they get along with. That's also dumb and not cool. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be hard, particularly for both of those shows going forward. And I'm glad I don't have to fix whatever that problem is. But I will say, as far as Summer House goes, I think that whenever these shows about young people, like we saw on Vanderpump, where they all, nominally worked at SUR, and then on Summer House, they all like had jobs. Once all of their jobs become being professional reality stars, it's
Yeah.
not as interesting to me anymore. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that, yeah, like Paige says, oh, you don't have jobs. Yeah, their job is being on the show, Paige, just like yours. Like,
Right.
you wouldn't be selling shit on Amazon if you didn't have this huge platform thanks to the show. So, yeah, you
Right.
have a job, but your job is really to be on the show. So, but I also find that boring. Like, even if you think of Kyle's lover boy as kind of like a vanity business, like he is working, he is doing things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think that is much more interesting and cool.
Yeah. I think, and you were talking about the sort of schedules of the Winter House, and we also kind of mentioned the last season of Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip about so close to the filming. And I think Bravo
Yeah.
in general needs to really think about how are we setting up these shows for success? Because one of the things I hated about the Summer House, at least the first episode of the reunion, I felt like everything covered was about like what news stories came out and who gave like
Yeah.
Dumois a tip, a blind item about Kyle cheating. And it was all stuff that didn't happen on the show. And it's like, well, that's because that's all that they can talk about. And then meanwhile, they've already filmed Winter House as they're filming this reunion, which some of them are there for. And it's like the dynamics are just like not making sense. And that was I had Gibson Johns on, and we talked about Ultimate Girls Trip when it first aired. And we were talking about that same thing, that all these women had just come from their seasons. And then they like came with like ongoing drama. So you got the bad weather drama and you got, stuff going on with Potomac. And then the problem is like now, as Ultimate Girls Trip was filming, they were filming, or as it was airing, rather, they were filming their new season of Salt Lake City. And it's like, so now Heather and Whitney are seeing like what's playing out on the show. And now is that going to go into this next season of Salt Lake? And then it's like, at some point we have to like what's the Sutton thing? Let the mouse go. Like we need to be able to like
Yeah.
put an end to that storyline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's what was weird about this Ultimate Girls Trip is that, they had filmed it before the reunion, but we saw the reunion before we saw Ultimate Girls Trip. And so it's like Heather and Whitney are making up at the end of Ultimate Girls Trip, but then we already know that they're falling out at the reunion. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's all like weird. And with the Housewives and Ultimate Girls Trip, I don't mind it as much as like the Summer House, Winter House stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really interesting to me how social media and things playing out on Instagram and Twitter and in the press and whatever has affected everything. And I mean, thank God that Scandival broke, relatively early in the season,
Yeah.
because I feel like the timing of it could have fucked everything up a lot. And I think it's like the story came out, they got the cameras back up, they filmed the reunion, like everything. It was in this like beautiful, perfect little window. And I don't
Yeah.
know that that's ever going to happen again. We're never going to have another Scandival. It's never going to be that
I
good.
know.
I hate to tell you all, but
Yeah. No. And
I
well,
think we've reached the peak.
Absolutely. And my fear is that like now, like these Southern charms and the summer houses and stuff are, as you talked about, like fame is addictive. And I hope
Yeah.
that we're not getting into some like artificial, like we've got to create storylines and we've got to like create some kind of scandal that's going to happen so that we can be as big as, Scandival was. And that's my fear about that, is because like you said, it was so authentic, it was so real, and that's why it was so good. And there will never be that moment again on Bravo.
No, and I feel like everything, I mean, people say that movies are a director's medium and television is a writer's medium. And I say that reality shows are a casting director's medium. Like it's all in
Mm-hmm.
the casting. Like it,
Yep.
and I think that is what was so good about Vanderpump Rules is that they cast a group of actual friends. And these are people who, as we saw, hang out when cameras aren't rolling. They are actually in each other's lives. They are friends. And it was like 10 years of that group dynamic that made Scandival so shocking and crazy. And no one else can come even close to that, like, yeah, Craig and Shep have known each other for 10 years, but like what new bimbo is on this season who nobody knows, like that's not gonna ignite a Scandival level event. So
right. Yeah,
yeah.
it's very interesting. It'll be interesting to kind of see where we go from here. Are there other or actually I know where I want your thoughts is this new New York era that we're about to usher in a couple of weeks. What are your thoughts on the new Roni?
I haven't seen anything yet. I mean, I know of Jenna Lyons. I've met her
Of
at a few
course.
parties. She's as frosty as they come. So that seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I am hopeful. Sarah Galley, who has a podcast called Andy's Girls, has a quote in my book that says, "I don't believe in God, but I have faith in the Real Housewives." And I agree with her entirely that they've given us so much good stuff that I anticipate them doing it again. But remember, everybody, like, I know we're going to watch the first episode and be like, this is garbage. Where's Sonia? Like,
Yeah.
the best franchises take a year or two. They're not all hits right out of the gate. So
Yeah.
let's give them some time to gel, get everything right, see how it's feeling. And yeah, but I'm on board for the ride and I'm really interested to see it because I think it's weird that we have so many movies and TV shows set in New York, but so few reality shows. Like reality is way more of an LA based medium. So I'm really excited to see the idea of New York through a different set of eyes and a different set of women and some queer women, some women of color, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
I'm excited, but obviously I'm cautiously optimistic, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's true. We all have to give it a moment. And I feel that way a little bit about Dubai. I feel like, it was like we hyped it. It wasn't this like blockbuster season, but like who knows what season 2 has in store. Hopefully something better. But I am something that I feel like is missing is, on Roni, the original, we had people that were a little later in life and they had a little bit
Yeah.
more success, and they were, they're not influencers, or they're not, I think like a Jenna Lyons is like great example of like being part
Yes.
of that group. But I am a little nervous about how young some of this cast is. And, is it going to give us that kind of old New York feel? Because that was something that I loved about Roni, is that it felt like old New York.
Well, and I like that it was, well, so how old's the cast? Like 35-ish?
I mean, I think some of them are even younger than that.
Interesting. I haven't looked, well, because that makes, I mean, because that makes them Lindsay Hubbard age. So then why isn't Lindsay Hubbard
Yeah,
on this?
that's what people are saying online is Lindsay's older than some of the cast of the new Roni. And so why isn't she just, if she's not getting along with anyone in the house, like, why aren't they just moving her over to Roni?
Right. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. And I know when I was doing research on the book, I talked to several casting directors, and they were like, "Yeah, Bravo's trying to get the age of the women down because they think that younger people will watch." But I don't think it matters. And I'm with you. Like, I've always said about Housewives that one of the great things about it, for better or for worse, is that there's nowhere else on television to see groups of women over 40 interacting with each other. And so I wish that they would have stuck to them being a little bit closer to middle age. But I mean, we'll see. But yeah, the other thing, that fame thing kind of scares me. I don't know if you watch Love Island, but I'm a big Love Island fan. And now everybody's coming on trying to get, the Instagram followers, or like The Bachelorette, any of those shows. And then it's like lame.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we don't get too much of that in New York. But I mean, it's got to be inevitable. Like, or why else would these women do it,
Yeah, totally. You mentioned Love Island. What are some of your other, like, outside of the Bravo sphere, like trash television, or where do you spend your time when not in the Bravo universe?
It's funny. My husband works in scripted television. And so when he comes home from work, he wants to watch reality shows because he doesn't have to think about work. And then I don't want to watch reality shows because I don't want to think about work. But I still watch a shit ton of reality shows. There's just one here. There was just one on here in the UK called I Kissed a Boy, and it's Love Island, but with gays. And it's like amazing. It's only 8 episodes. It's hosted by Danny Minogue, who's like the Solange of the Minogue family, for those who don't know. And it's really, really good. So I watched that. I watched Selling Sunset. I watch Love Island, which I mean is on literally every day for 2 months. So that's like a huge time commitment. And that's the thing about here in the UK is like even Traitors, there was 12 episodes, but it was 3 days a week for 4 weeks, So it's like anything is a big time commitment. But I'm trying to think of what else. I watch a lot of like sci-fi, like fantasy, comic booky shit like that. Like I love all of those things. I've been watching Silo on Apple recently, which is pretty good. But I love Survivor. I'm a huge Survivor fan. If you like Survivor, I highly recommend Australian Survivor because the boys are bigger and the swimsuits are smaller. So that always makes for good viewing. I'm a big Brother fan. They're bringing both Survivor and Big Brother back in the UK, so I'm excited for that. So yeah, I mean, oh my God, I watch so much television. and there's so much Bravo to watch. Like, every time I'm like, oh, I don't want to watch another one. And then I watch a couple episodes of House Martha's Vineyard, and I'm like, ugh, I'm in. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I find that I don't really have time for anything other than Bravo, because there is so much content to absorb. But I try to like dip in. Somebody was like, I can't believe you're not watching Selling Sunset if you love Housewives so much. So I started Selling Sunset like a couple of weeks ago, and I'd like have binged. I about to start the 6th season. To me, it's nothing like Housewives because it's so overproduced and so like scripted, and it has that Hills vibe. But but I am entertained by it.
That's why I watch it, because I can't figure out how it's made, and I can't figure out what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
It's like they clearly hate Christine.
Yeah.
But and Christine did some fucked up things, but did Christine do those things on the show? Like for the show? Did she do them because someone told them to? Did she do them because she's crazy?
Right.
Like I can't figure it out. But my other problem with Selling Sunset is none of the things they're fighting about ever happen on camera. And so like in the 6th season, they're like, oh, we were hanging out. And then afterwards, Brie and I went and she did XYZ. It's like, if I can't see it, then I can't judge it. And I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And that was everything with Christine. It was like, oh, well, a client called and said, blah, blah, blah. Well, how can I believe that if I never saw the call? And also, how can I believe that when I don't even believe that the people who you are bringing to this house are actually interested in buying this house? Like, I don't believe anything that's happening here.
Right.
And so that's why I love Selling Sunset, because it's like a puzzle that I can't, it's like a Rubik's Cube of reality television brain that I can't figure out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. It's too fake.
Yeah. And there's
but also not authentic about its fakeness.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like you, as someone who just like picked it up and was watching some of these, earlier seasons, it is very strange because they are all of a sudden fighting about like things that happened in the media or things that like, and it's like kind of hard to follow as a viewer because you're not watching real time. So you don't know what Christine said to Us Weekly and you don't know but all of a sudden they're so mad at each other and you're like, why is there so much hate? And they're not really explaining it well on the show. And I think that's like as we were talking about with like the Summer House and all the stuff that happens on social media and podcasts and all, that's the worry is like some of these shows, like I could watch New York season 1 on repeat today and it would be just as entertaining today as it was back then. And I worry like some of these later seasons when we start just talking about things that don't happen on the show is like you lose kind of context of what is actually going on and it doesn't make for an entertaining season.
I think they've done a really good job with in the Bravo universe of doing it. And, I talked to people who worked on the shows for my book and some said like, yeah, in the early days, we weren't allowed to mention Twitter. We weren't allowed to mention Instagram. We weren't allowed to mention the press. Like it all had to seem like it was organic, like to the show. And then they finally relented on that. So I do think that they do a good job on Bravo where it's like, oh yeah, Paige said some things about me in the press and it will show the clip from the podcast. It'll show the headlines from the articles. It'll show, somebody will explain it. Like, so it's like, okay, even if I didn't follow all this, like, okay, I get it. Like I know. And if I want to know more, I can go and find it on the internet. Selling Sunset doesn't do any of that. It's just like all like weird and obfuscated and you can't tell what's real and what's not because I don't think they can be like, here's what Christine said, because then you'd see like how fucking fake it is. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's wild, but I'm in. I feel like anytime I watch like something trashy, I'm like, I'm going to watch one episode and see if I like it. And then I'm, 6 seasons deep on it. So I have a problem.
Everyone keeps telling me I need to watch The Lesbian Ultimatum on Netflix. It's called Ultimatum Queer Love, but it's like all these lesbian couples, like lesbian couple drama. And I was like, I love drama, but lesbians bring a high level of drama. Like that might be too much drama. That might be my drama ceiling. It's like a lesbian drama, but I will watch a few and find out because I love the Kiss the Boy so much. There was only 8 episodes and they've renewed it for a second season. I hope it's twice as long. Yeah, and shockingly, the boys didn't like they were hot and heavy, but it wasn't like crazy fucking or anything. So I was like, thank you for not embarrassing our people in front of the straights.
But also like you could give us that too.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I wouldn't mind that. So I'll watch anything as a reality show. I watched that Welcome to Wrexham show. Do you know about this?
No.
It's on, I think it's on FX in America. It's on Disney Plus here. And it's about the football, or since we're in America, the soccer team that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought. And it's about their journey with the team. And Yeah, I love that. And I told my father it was really good, and he watched it, and he kept sending me articles about like the standings of the season, and I was like, no spoilers. I want to watch it on my show. Like, I don't want to hear about this. Like, I need to see it on television. Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I think before we wrap, there's a part in your book where you, or a section of the book where you name the 5 essential episodes for people that have never watched Real Housewives. I'm curious, has that list changed at all? And since you wrote the book, and if so, kind of what makes the cut now?
Remind me of what the list is, since it's
Yeah.
been a few years.
Yes. I mean, obviously Jersey, uh, the finale of Jersey,
Yeah,
the dinner
table
party
flip.
from hell. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dinner party from hell, Beverly Hills, Sun, Sand, and Psychosis, New York City, and
yeah,
Bringing Up Old Ghosts, Orange County,
yeah.
and Pillow Talk or Pillow Fight, Atlanta.
I would maybe get rid of the OC one and replace it with Jen Shaw's arrest.
Okay. That's honestly, it's why I asked the question. Is I was like, do you find that episode to be one of the most historic moments of Housewives history? Because I certainly do.
Absolutely. It was a crazy episode. I mean, and I think that, like a lot of those other episodes, especially the table flip, is when it like breaks into the mainstream. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Jen Shaw's arrest did that in a big way. I'm trying to think if there was a similar, like, that's the thing about the Erica Jane situation, is it kind of played out in slow motion over the season. So it's not like, oh, this one episode, you
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
could watch and you'll get it. Whereas with the Jen Shaw, it's like, yeah, and seeing them all react to it and talk about it, and the bus ride, and Lisa Barlow and her 7 lawyers. And yeah, I mean, it's one of the all time greats.
Yeah.
I worry about Salt Lake too, though.
Yeah. I don't know where we're going from here.
Yeah, me neither. But did you hear that Jen Shaw and the Theranos lady are in the same prison, Elizabeth Holmes?
Yes. Yes. I'm like, where are the cameras for that?
I mean, I want a show where Jen Shaw and Elizabeth Holmes solve crimes in prison. Like, that's I want like
I mean,
heart to
that's
heart,
actually,
but in prison with the two of them. That's the show that I want. Thank you. Love Brian.
yes. Yes, that is amazing. Well, on that note, I think that like we've covered it all. As I said, you are the expert, and I'm so glad that you were here today to share all of your thoughts. But before we go, tell people where they can follow you and where they can keep up with all of your amazing recaps.
So yeah, I'm on Vulture. I do most of the Housewives, like Vanderpump Rules, Southern Charm, Summer House, Winter House, all that. And the recaps go up as soon as the episode is done airing on the East Coast. So go to vulture.com. You can check them out there. I do a monthly newsletter about the Real Housewives called the Housewives Institute Bulletin. And you can sign up for that at vulture.com/housewives. And I am on all social media platforms at Brian J. Moylan, except for Grinder, where my headline is Mustache Rides. Look for me. Send dick pics, whatever you
I
want.
mean, are you love it. And I mean, you might have to update it like Worm with a mustache. Like I feel like that's the new mustache ride.
Oh my God. So can I tell you what I did? So
Yes, please.
on like Grinder or Scruff or whatever, you can have like a private album of your like dirty like dick pictures or whatever. And so you just like
Mhm.
open access to the album and people can like scroll through them all. So I put it, it's all like naked pictures of me, naked pictures of me, naked pictures of me. And then the last picture is that meme of Kyle Richards with the enormous like microphone or magnifying glass held up to her eye. And people are always like, oh, I wasn't expecting Kyle. But it gets a good laugh. So I'm like here for it.
I love I love that. I love that. Well, as you can tell from that story, you're hilarious.
Oh,
I
thank
am
you.
a subscriber. I follow you. So I am always so entertained by everything that you had to say, and especially today. Again, thank you for coming by. My friend Emily, by the way, is she's a listener, but she's also my good friend. She was freaking out when I told her that you were coming on today.
Oh, hi,
She was like,
Emily.
not Dame Brian J. Moylan. She was like, oh my gosh, like I read everything he writes. I'm such a big fan. Um, so yeah, you've got some fans here in Nashville. So when you come by, you've got to hit us up, and we'll take you out.
Thank you. I'm banned in Tennessee at the moment because my life is drag. So, sorry.
It's it it's no longer legal. It's no longer illegal.
Oh,
We overturned that.
okay, great. I'll be
Yeah,
there. Sign me up.
yeah. Just just in time for Pride. Thank God. And just in time for the Madonna concert with Bob the Drag Queen.
Can't
So
wait.
we're loving that. Yeah. Well, awesome. Brian, thank you so much for being here. For all of you out there, don't forget, rate and subscribe. You never miss an episode of The Gist. You can follow me at CM Vetrano on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the things, and tune in next week for more from The Gist. And until then, Chris Vetrano, and I'm signing off. Bye.